What's up, everybody? Axe Wizard here with a video a little bit different. I figured I would do a review of something and just share my experience using Starlink over the last few years. For those, I've mentioned a few times in various videos, but Starlink is my internet service provider, and it's not that, you know, I want to be all hip and cool with the latest science tech. It's that I live in a rural area and I don't have many options. So, first of all, what is Starlink? Now, I'm not going to give you this big whole course on it, but basically, traditional satellite internet is trash. Like, I'm talking like Viasat, HughesNet, those other bastards that are surprisingly somehow still in business. I don't know how, but they are. So what they have is they have like geopositional like satellites that are like way out in orbit, right? And so what that means is that your latency, which is the time it takes for the information to go back and forth. So if my computer sends out a packet, because that's how networking works, it's basically packets. Think of like the actual mail system. You mail a letter. How long does it take for a response to come back from that letter? So if I mail it to my friend and my friend immediately gets it, immediately writes me back and sends me back his own packet, how long does that take? That's basically how networking and internet works, like in a nutshell, right? So with traditional satellite, that time usually takes above 200 milliseconds. I was using HughesNet prior to this, and I was getting anywhere between 2 to 2,000 millisecond latency. What that means is that if you are trying to do anything that needs quick response time, such as gaming, like online gaming with friends, or even doing something as simple as interacting in a business Zoom call, it's gonna have a weird delay. So you might do something and then like literally seconds later it might appear on the screen for someone else because the latency is so bad. Also, because of how packets are transmitted and delivered, sometimes they don't always make it there. So when that happens, if a packet is dropped, usually, most things use TCP, that's Transmission Control Protocol, that basically has this check to make sure, like, hey, did this actually go through? Am I getting all the stuff? If I didn't get a packet, I'm going to send you a packet back requesting the packet that I missed. And so it has this greater cost. So it might seem like, oh, 200 millisecond latency, not too big a deal. If you're doing something that requires all the packets to be present, such as downloading a movie or downloading a video game or downloading a large bunch of tabletop RPG PDFs, it's going to take a lot longer. So it's also going to affect your speeds. Now, Starlink's approach is basically, why do we have the satellite so far out? Why don't we just put the satellite closer? Well, because the satellite can't hit, it doesn't have a good angle, it can't respond. Well, why don't we just put a bunch of satellites up there? That's what Starlink's approach is. So they have an entire like constellation of satellites, right? And you can actually see that here. All these things are actually satellites in the sky, which kind of looks alarming and crazy and kind of dystopian. And I'll be real, like, this is wow. This is also one of the big cons I have with Starlink, and I'll talk about it later, but I don't know, maybe not for the reasons you think. Like, I'm not like an environmentalist or anything. I mean, I recycle and I try not to be a shitbag, but I'm not out there saving the planet or anything. I'm just a shitbag consumer like everybody else. But yeah, that's a lot of freaking satellites. So why did I get it? Well, I got it, as I said, because I was using HughesNet earlier. Now, why in the hell would I use HughesNet? What the hell is wrong with you? I'll tell you why. Because I live in New York State, in the United States of America, And New York, particularly in upstate New York where I reside, it's a bit of it's actually surprisingly rural up here. It's kind of spread out. There's blue skies above me. I can breathe. I know that for many people, they hear New York and, oh, you're a city boy. You in the city. You can't see nothing with all them big buildings around there. No, I'm like 8 hours away from that shithole, okay? I'm not even close to there. What that means is that my options are a bit more limited. Now, New York State tried to do something cool. They had a really big, like, broadband initiative a few years ago to deliver high-speed internet to rural parts of New York. That's awesome. The problem is that HughesNet was considered high-speed. And so what ended up happening is that how the program worked, New York State was giving these grants to various service providers to provide service. And they also, part of that grant would help reduce any sign-up costs and stuff like that. So I've tried getting Spectrum. They are about like 3,000 feet that way to the nearest pole. I've tried to get another local fiber provider. They're about 3,000 feet that way. For some reason, some asshole decided to give my little triangle of heaven on this map. They decided to give the grant to HughesNet. And also, New York State was getting real pissy with a lot of the providers because they weren't fulfilling their obligations. So what this basically means is that neither of these two providers, which deliver fiber, high-speed, reliable internet that I could, like, download frickin' Space Marine 2 in, like, 2 seconds, and I could stream that bitch if I wanted to. They don't provide service here, and they're not obligated to. And because New York State has been so pushy with them, they're a little less lenient here than they would be somewhere else, to where, you know, oh, if you're within so and so feet, yeah, we'll just run it out there for you and get you going. No, Spectrum, I tried to work with them. They're like, well, you're outside the 2,000 foot limit we would normally do, so since it's about $20,000 per mile to run fiber, it's going to be about $13,000 to get you fiber. I'm like, you could eat my entire asshole. I'm not paying that. So thus enters our Lord and Savior, Daddy Elon Musk, who comes down with his magical technical Starlink satellites that provide internet. So I was on the waiting list for about a year before I actually got the damn thing. I signed up for it because I was using HughesNet. Since the grant was given to HughesNet, I didn't have to pay any setup fee. I was just paying like $60 a month or whatever for some shitty ass 25 megabit per second connection that was more like 5 megabit per second connection with massive ass latency. And on top of that, they had the balls to put a fucking data limit on that shit. So I could only do like, it was like 50 or 60 gigs per month. I can't even download a game with that. I'm like, at that point, I just cranked up my Verizon bill with a freaking hotspot on my phone because I was getting better internet. Yes, I know Verizon offers internet. They don't offer home internet in my area because the towers are not equipped with those fancy 5G things. They don't, I've checked. Come on. So, Starlink was my only option, and currently, it still is my only option, which is kind of a bummer. So what did it cost? So when I got it a few years ago, I think it was at least like 3 years ago now, it was $500 for the kit. And it was this big old box. I still got the box in a closet somewhere. It came with the dishy, the actual satellite dish. It came with the router. It came with the cables, the stand, and yeah, it came with that stuff. And then it was also $90 a month for the internet. There was no like tiers or like levels of service that you could get at the time. I haven't checked to see if they are, because the fuckers keep raising the price on me, and I'm already paying a shit ton the more that I want to. So it was $90 a month at the time I purchased it. So it's gone up over the years. It got bumped up to 100 a month, and then it got bumped up to 110 a month. And now I'm seeing on Reddit that more people are getting notices that their stuff is going up again. So it's probably going to go up to 120 a month, or maybe they're going to squeak in 125 because fuck you, consumer. There's no competition because no one else is offering what Starlink gives. You cannot get satellite internet that works anywhere, not only in the United States, but pretty much in the frickin' world. Like, if you go back and look at this constellation, it literally works in the fucking ocean. You can't get that speed and latency with anything else right now. So, that's what it cost at the start. I don't know how much it is for the kit now. I don't know how the availability is. I had just paid like a deposit, and then once I was notified, I had the option to pay the full amount, and then they sent that shit to me. So, after all that stuff, after I got it, how was the unboxing and the setup? To be honest, it was one of the most painless things I've ever done. It was literally plug and play. You open the box, you take out the padding. It's got 2 cables, it's got a router, and it's got a satellite dish with the quad pod, I guess you could call it. It's not a tripod, it's a quad pod. So you literally just put the dish outside. It has a cable already plugged into it, which I don't think I can detach, which I'm kind of worried about, because what happens if that cable gets ruined? Do I have to get a whole new dish? I don't know. And then that cable plugs into your router, and then you take the power cable and you plug that into your router into the wall, and then the dish will align itself with the sky. Took about 5 minutes, and I had internet. It was really painless. And it also comes with an app, which is actually a pretty nice app, that checks and sees your obstructions, and, you know, the dish automatically points towards the best satellite, so it gets the best speeds and everything, and it's manageable. So I literally just threw it outside. I threw it in my front lawn, and I had internet, and I was like, okay, cool, I gotta figure out where to mount it. So you can see in this picture, I just kind of I took some old wood that I had lying around here, and I just screwed it into my deck and made like a little Starlink perch. And now I've got, not many obstructions, and it's working awesome. So that's where it's been for the last like 3 years. And it's working great. The dish is still in great condition. I bolted it, or I screwed it into the platform there, so it hasn't moved even during like crazy rain, windstorms and stuff. It stayed there. This dish, I believe, is the 2nd generation dish. I don't know what the newer ones are like. They might still be this same kind. The first ones were actually a round like dish, and they actually had a problem of birds using them as bird baths, and they collected water. So the top of this dish is actually flat, so it doesn't collect pools of water, and birds don't want to use it for your bird bath because they were causing obstructions. So let's talk about the app. The app is pretty good. As you can see here, like, this is the basic app. I got my network name blotted out, so it makes it harder for you to hack me. Please don't hack me. I don't want to be hacked. So this is literally the connection here. Like, see, it goes from dish to the router. So dishy to the router, and it says it's online, it's good to go. You can view your network statistics. You can see how many devices are connected to your network, and I think you can even boot them off if you want. You can check for obstructions. You can run a speed test, and there's other various settings and stuff in there. And there's not pictured here, but below that, there's also a link to like customer support, but I haven't had very good luck with that. So what about the speeds latency? So we talked all this fancy satellite talk about how it's so much better than regular satellite, but how does it actually compare? What are the numbers, bro? So here we go. We got download speeds. So I'm typically getting, like during peak times, what I mean by peak times is peak usage times, not peak speeds, peak usage times. So when everybody gets off work, when everybody goes home, I'm usually running between 40 to 60 megabit per second download speeds, which is pretty good. HughesNet was supposed to give me 25, and I was only getting about 5. It sucked. So this is manageable. I can download big ass freaking games in just a few hours. Like, I think it only took me like an hour or two to download Destiny 2. And that game was like 130 gigs or something like that. I don't play it anymore, but that's when I downloaded it. I was trying. It was free, okay? Get off my back. So, but randomly sometimes during off-peak times, during non-peak hours, like if I'm not feeling good and I stay home and I call in sick from work and I'm just playing games or something on here, I notice that like I'm getting mad speeds. The highest I've ever gotten was 170 megabit per second. That was sweet. That was awesome. Upload speeds, however, are always between 5 to 10 megabit per second. So you can see this speed test I did before I started making this video. I got 51 megabit per second download speed, 9.2 megabit per second upload speed, and I got 34 milliseconds of latency. The latency is probably the best part. It's always 20 to 50 milliseconds for me personally, and I've been checking it throughout the years. I've never had it higher than 50, which is nuts for satellite. In fact, it's crazy because sometimes I even do like a speed test at work on like business class fiber internet, and the latency's like 30 milliseconds, and I'm getting better latency with my Starlink. That's nuts. I don't know how that's physically or technologically possible. I don't know if Starlink is fibbing to me, but I've never had a latency issue with Starlink, and I'm actually pretty impressed with that. That's one of the huge pros about it, is the latency. It's always consistent, it's always good. So those are speeds, pretty good. That's what I've been getting. I don't know now if like there's newer dishes out that, you know, offer more speeds, or there's more tiers or plans. I haven't looked. I'm pretty happy with what I got now. So those are the speeds, but what about uptime and outages? Now, this was a big concern of mine, and especially when I had HughesNet. If there was a cloud in the sky, I was screwed. If there was frost on my dish, I was screwed. If there was snow, if it was snowing, I was screwed. It sucked. It absolutely sucked. So I basically had internet for like 5 months out of the year. It sucked. Starlink, however, has been surprisingly tenacious and durable, and I've only had a few rare outages. Now, when I say outage, I mean both in terms of like the actual Starlink service from at the provider level is having a problem, and also locally at my level there are conditions that cause an outage. It's been brief. Typically the only local outages that I get due to my area is when there's like a massive thunderstorm going through, and the outage is typically like 5 to 10 minutes at the most, at the peak of the storm. Other than that, it's still working great. I'm still getting like 40 megabit per second download speed. I'm still gaming. It's still working. I don't get disconnected. It blows my mind. I'm surprised it works as well as it does. The other big concern is here in upstate New York, we have pretty bad winters. So you can see by this picture, my poor dishy is covered in snow and ice. And this is another cool thing about the dish, is that the dish will actually heat itself. So it detects if the temperature's too low, and it will like use some of the power, and it will warm itself up, and it will melt the snow. Thus you can see these big ass icicles hanging off of it. So that's what it does. But the problem is, if you have tons of snow and really low temperatures, sometimes it can't keep up, which is what happened here. So I just noticed this when I was like pulling into my driveway one day, and it had been like this for a while. And I was still getting internet, and it was still working, and I didn't notice a difference in my performance. So I went out here and gingerly knocked off those icicles, and then once I knocked off like one or two of the small ones, I was able to actually just gently tug on the bottom, and the whole rest of that stuff just slid off. And it didn't, I didn't notice a difference. It still worked the same. It was amazing. So really impressed with that. Huge pro. I think that's amazing. As far as outages at the provider level, I think the worst I've had was it was down for an entire day. And this is one of the few times I tried to engage with their customer service, and I'm not impressed with their customer service. Now, I haven't tried to use their customer service in probably 2 years now, so maybe they've improved upon this since then. But my experience last time, I had a much better time just going on Twitter and just adding Elon Musk and Starlink directly and saying, yo, shit's fucked, fix it. And then it was like they worked on it. I mean, yeah, so good stuff there. So my final pros and cons of Starlink. Works pretty much anywhere. Like, literally, it works anywhere. Now that they have that massive constellation of satellites, and they're still deploying more satellites. What the hell? How many satellites do you need? They just keep deploying them. Works pretty much anywhere. Easy setup. Literally plug and play. You just plug in the cables, plug in the power outlet, and the dish just starts working and doing its thing. You just throw it out in the front lawn and you've got internet in 5 minutes. It's amazing. Decent speeds. The speeds aren't like insanely good. They're insanely good for satellite, and it's more than adequate for my needs. And I would like it downloads games quickly. I can play online games with friends. I can play MMOs. I can upload YouTube videos. It suits my needs. It melts the ice and snow by itself, so it keeps itself clear of obstructions, which is nice. It also orients and adjusts itself to find the best signal. So, sometimes the constellation might change, and I noticed that like my dish kind of like moves around sometimes. So it will find the next best satellite to give to talk to. So it's really nice there. And the app also works great. The app actually is pretty damn impressive. I haven't had any problems with the app. The only downside to the app is that you have to be connected to your Wi-Fi in order to use it, because otherwise it can't talk to your router. And it can't talk to Starlink and all that stuff. So if you want to do like billing and stuff through the app, that's not really a thing from what I've seen. You have to go online and handle the billing stuff. So now for the cons. The biggest con that I have with Starlink, besides the stupid fucking pricing, is that for some reason, not one of those big brain motherfuckers at Starlink decided to put a Ethernet port on a router. So what that means is that I can't just hardwire my computer to the router like a normal person would. I can't get like some really good, I can't, so Wi-Fi is okay. It's not the best though, because it's basically like a mini satellite connection here, right? You've got from your computer to the router. What happens if that signal goes forth? What happens if my big head is right in front of my Wi-Fi adapter and I'm blocking that signal with my big brainness and with this big hat? I don't know. And so sometimes I feel like my performance, like my speeds would probably be higher if I was able to just plug it directly into the damn router. I can't do that. I haven't looked in a while, but some people were making like this aftermarket, like third-party shim plug that you can like use, but your router wouldn't sit right, and then it costs an arm and a leg. And then I was like, this seems kind of sus. What if they hack my shit? Wasn't good. So yeah, the other big con is that, as I said earlier, with how when we were talking about the constellation, no one else is doing this. No one else is even capable of doing this. So there's no competition. And in a capitalist society, when there's no competition, shit gets worse for the consumer. So these prices just keep going up. $90 a month was already fucking steep. Then it went up to 100, and I grumbled, and I took it because I didn't have a choice. And then they raised that shit up to 110, and I was like, I wasn't happy, but I still took it because I don't have a choice. And now they're probably going to raise this shit again, and I got no choice. My choices are go back to HughesNet and just be miserable and pay less money for an infinitely worse product. That ratio doesn't work itself out. Or I can go back to Verizon and pay a big ass monthly Wi-Fi like tethering bill and have data limits, and that sucks. So I'm kind of just stuck taking it. So that's my biggest con. The other con kind of ties in. It's expensive. It really is. You know, the $500 of out of pocket at the time I paid for it. It's probably more expensive now. It's probably like $700 now. I got no idea. The high upfront cost and then the high repeating monthly recurring cost is a bit much to swallow. Hardly any customer service. Again, I should have put an asterisk on that because I haven't tried to use their customer service in like 2 years. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say maybe they've improved that since then. But that's my con. And then the last con is brief outages. So there has been larger outages. Sometimes it's usually to a few hours. The biggest was up to a whole day. But there's only been 4 provider level outages that I can remember in the last 3 years or so, which is pretty damn good because I've only been at my job for like less than a year, and we use like Spectrum and Verizon, and those motherfuckers have outages all the time. So, yeah. Maybe I'm getting a better deal. I don't know. Anyway, I want to share my honest, unfiltered thoughts on Starlink, my internet service provider. And, yeah. Oh, the last thing I didn't mention is the upload speeds between 5 to 10 megabit per second. If you are thinking about, like, if you want to be a streamer in the middle of nowhere, you have to seriously think about what content you want to stream. I've tried to do some test streams on YouTube, and I can't do anything graphically intensive. So earlier I was talking about like how I might want to play Space Marine 2 or something, right? If I wanted to stream that with the homies, doing some co-op gameplay, I don't even have Space Marine 2, but I would play the shit out of that game. I would purge so many frickin' Xenos and Chaos scum for our Lord and Savior, the Emperor. But I can't because my computer can't run it, and if I wanted to stream it, Starlink wouldn't be able to stream it at a watchable bitrate, especially with those high motion, high fidelity games. If you're doing something like I'm doing right now, where I'm just given a frickin' PowerPoint basically, you'd probably be okay, but that's not very engaging content. In fact, I bet you're watching me on a second monitor right now, and that's okay. I respect that, and I appreciate you for watching me. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. I appreciate it, and I will probably see you in whatever random ass video I make next.